Yeah, I'm so extra. Express myself, I'm next up. Yeah, what more do you say? Coming up. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Come up now. Can't stop me. Come on. You coming up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Tuesday and the House of Peach is on. I don't know about anybody else, but I am like at the end of my rope today. But I have some excitement and I still have some drive for tonight's show because we have a great topic on tonight and we are excited about discussing it. But first, my beautiful host, Morgan. How are you, dear? How's your day been?
It was quite eventful.
Eventful? I don't know. Is that a good eventful? Is
A
that a
great
not so good?
eventful. Yeah, I had two babies, two boys
Yay.
today in one
Oh,
day, 2 days. So, yeah, it was great. Moms are doing great.
awesome.
Dads did very good jobs. I always love
Mm,
when my dads do great jobs, like advocating. I'm like a proud mama. I just feel like, oh, I'm so proud of y'all. I'm sorry. I cry almost every birth.
do you
I
seriously?
do. I really do. I'm like
Oh,
such a
wow.
sad. Oh my goodness. My one last week really took me out. Like it's such a spiritual thing. It's such a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot.
yeah,
And so, there's a really nice high and then it
right.
comes down. So, you have to definitely make sure that you take care of yourself because you can burn out.
Yeah, in class today, the instructor showed the students a C-section video because she was teaching on the OBGYN chapter in surgical technology. And so she showed them a video of how C-section is done. And I was like, oh, the baby. I was more focused on the baby than anything else. Like, look, I'm already that. So I know what to do. I'm just focusing on his baby crying. He was so adorable. But now one of the students is like, "Oh, I'm getting baby fever," and I'm sitting there like, "I'm not.
That's
That's
so
not
funny.
happening.
That's so
I'm
funny.
good."
You said today you were watching a video?
With the
And that's so
students,
funny. And then I was like, and I texted you about
yeah,
that very thing
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
So you guys share this out. We want you to share, tag someone, let them know that we are on. If you are an adoptee and you want to be on with us today, it is not too late. You can join us and let us know about your how things have been for you and everything that you want to share about that, because there are a lot of people that are adopted. Kudos to those that have adopted kids, whether they're in infant stage, toddler, or teenagers or adolescent. Kudos to you for taking them in and adopting them and raising them. That's your own, because they are once you adopt them. Last week, I want to recap. Hey, Jackie, I see you. Hey, Cheryl. Smack says, hey, y'all in Ohio making history for reproductive rights. You go, Smack. You handle that. Do that. Smack is a great advocate for whatever you need. She is there. So I am, be safe there in Ohio. I know you're going to do some great things. Last week, I just want to replay last week. Last week, we had our He Said, She Said, and we talked about what do you do when the person that you're with or connected to hinders your growth. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That show, if you did not see this show from last Tuesday, you need to go either on my page, on Morgan's page, on House of Peach page, and find it from last Tuesday and watch that. That was powerful. We had some powerhouses on there who gave their input on that. And when I say it was great, we had Peach and Smack to come on and they gave us their input. It was a great show. It was filled with a lot of information, a lot of aha moments, a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom. Y'all don't want to miss the last Tuesday in every month. We have our He Said, She Said segment, and we have a great topic, which Mo handles that. She comes up with the best topics, and we have our panel on. You can always be a part if you want to. All you got to do is reach out to us in any way that you can to say, hey, I want to be on the platform. I want to give my input, and we will send you the link and you can come in. You can stay the entire time. You could be on for a short period of time. It is your choice. It is a free, no judgment zone. Everybody's input, everybody's opinions matter, and we're all respectful of each other. And that's what I love about what we're doing at House of Peach, because it's not swayed one way or the other. Everybody is included and everybody is heard. So if you have not been on for a He Said, She Said, you are missing an absolute treat. Oh my goodness, that was good.
Yes, we definitely have fun.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we definitely have fun.
Yeah, it was good. No insight, no wisdom, no nothing.
No, we dropped a whole lot of jewels. So what you mean? Any insight on what we're gonna do for next one?
No. Anything that you want to say about last Tuesday?
Oh no, last Tuesday, I keep going like that's a wow, and like definitely on the replay. I enjoyed it. I was like the conversation flowed, very, very well. I think like I said, a lot of jewels were dropped. And I like how we can definitely learn from each other. But yeah, the no judgment zone and just being able to, have your own opinion and just have real, adult conversation about real, issues.
Right.
And on a higher level, not necessarily on that superficial status. Like I enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, GH1 Accord. Thank you for watching on YouTube. We appreciate you being on, and stay on, and share it out so others can join from either YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're everywhere. Everywhere you can think of, we're on here. So just to give you some information, some housekeeping, we are yet still desiring female entrepreneurs that have not been interviewed on the show. If you know of someone and they have not been on, then you need to let us know. That we need to get in contact with them. Or if you're on and you're a female entrepreneur and you have not been on this show, you need to be on here. We want to interview you. We want to highlight your business. We want to highlight what you're doing. We want to celebrate you and get you connected with people who may need your services, your products, your insight, your wisdom, whatever it may be, because these folks that come on here from January up until now, they have been dropping some stuff on us, some serious nuggets, oh my goodness, stuff is still with me from various shows, and I appreciate that. And we do not want to stop the momentum. We want to increase it. So reach out to us, let us know that you want to be on the show. We will be happy to have you. So we are winding up 2023, about to cross over into 2024. I can't believe it. This year flew by.
Definitely.
We've had some great shows this year. So next month, one of our shows next month is going to be a Where Are They Now? So we're going to go back from the beginning of the year with some of our first guests that we've had and have them on in a panel to see what has happened for them since they were on the show, what new things they're doing, what they're going to be doing in 2024. We want to discuss it all. We want to see, and the guests have been great, so it will be so cool to have them on again. So we may have to split it up into 2 different shows because we've had so many, and just kind of, pick some people. We'll put them in a wheel and we'll pull their name out to see who we're going to have on. But if you've been on the show already, just be on the lookout. Either Morgan or myself will reach out and say, hey, on December so, are you available? Because we want to have you on a panel just to see where are they now. And we're looking forward to that. We are going to, Morgan and I, get together and make our plans for 2024 along with Peach and Smack, so we can take this to the next level next year. We want it to go higher. We want it to be more impactful, more insightful. We want more women on. We just want to, I want to see House of Peach name like up on a billboard. Wouldn't that be cool to see the name on a
Yeah.
billboard? I just like literally visualize a big billboard with House of Peach, and then people calling and emailing to find out, and going on the website to find out, what is House of Peach? What is this all about? Okay, go on there, you'll find out. But we are happy about tonight. And Mo, you just sit there. I'm doing all the talking. You just sit there like, yep, yep. Come on. Can y'all please tell her she needs to come on? Jackie said last week was definitely a need for, there's a need for part 2, she said.
Yeah.
So there's a need for part 2 of that. Ooh.
I totally agree. I was actually thinking that we'd probably end up doing our Where Are They Now in a 2-part series. I was like, it'll probably end up being a 2-part series. But yeah.
Well, we definitely need to take that into consideration about a part 2 of, and having a different question that links to that, but takes it further. Not the same question, but a question that lines up with it, but takes it to a different level. Because from the question, it could be from marriage, from relationships, for business, for friendships, because you can have friends that hold you back. I know that for a fact, that I had to let somebody go, or let a few people go, because they were hindering me from getting to the next level. And as soon as I let them go and realize, okay, this is not benefiting me, then I have to do that. And then too, what about family? Now, you can't change your family, but if the connection is strong enough to where they're keeping you from moving to the next level, then of course you got to make some decisions on how you're going to handle that family member. It doesn't mean that you love them any less, doesn't mean that you're not family anymore. You just got to handle them a different way.
Exactly.
So I don't know. This sounds pretty good to me. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss that and see where we're going to go from there. But tonight, we are talking about adoption. So we're going to hear from those that have been adopted and what that was like for them. And it goes all into mental health, and it goes into feeling of belonging, being abandoned, all of those things. But then too, when you get adopted by that right family that loves you and nurtures you and raises you and helps you to achieve greatness, then it's all worthwhile. And I'm going to sit back tonight. I'm going to say some stuff here and there, but I'm really going to sit back because Morgan herself is an adoptee. And I didn't know that until, I don't know what show we were in on that someone mentioned about that, and you said it. And I was sitting there like, what? So
yeah,
I'm going to let you go ahead. The one with me. I'm going to let you go ahead.
Okay.
And get started with that.
Yes. So, yes, November is National Adoption Month. And it is, I guess, set to raise awareness to adoptee issues. For some, we believe that it should also be awareness to some of the systems that adoption uses when it comes to children. Adoption is, I guess, is a very it's a very intricate thing, especially when you come from the place of being adopted. Everyone is like, yes, you find this lovely family. For the most part, that happens. There are definitely some, like the other day, we celebrated honoring the some adoptees who end up unfortunately losing their lives from their adoptive parents. There are, some people out there that, whether it's in foster care or an actual legal adoption, end up still doing harm to the children that they adopt. So there are adoption is not as rosy, but then it's not. And so, I want to be able to talk about the raw and the real, the beautiful and the not so beautiful things that come along with adoption, because adoptee voices typically are not heard. You hear a lot from birth parents, you hear a lot from adoptive parents, mostly. Um, and so it kind of, adoptee voices tend to get drowned out. And unfortunately, you see that in numbers, like you had mentioned, when it comes to things like mental health. And unfortunately, there's the suicide rate is higher for adoptees, um, eating disorders, um, anxiety, depression, lots of other different things. And so, like I said, the month is really put together to be able to bring awareness to all facets of adoption. But most recently, there are a lot of adoptees that are coming out, especially um, African American adoptees, to be able to speak out as far as their experiences, because we don't always traditionally adopt in the
Mhm.
sense of going through an agency, or going through some private kind of sector. There's a
Right.
lot of kinship adoption and a lot of other things that kind of go on within our community as well. And so, being able to speak up about that. There's a large presence, on Instagram and podcasts like Black to the Beginning that shed light on amazing stories from all sides. So,
Right. So one thing that has always bothered me, or I was concerned, is when you go back from to foster care before you get to adoption, and the numbers for us as a race of people that we don't go through that process quite often. And I think about how traditional families are. Usually, if one of the family members has issues, whether it's drugs or whatever's going on, and they have children, it just, the family members just take the children and raise them, and it's not always the best environment or always the best way. And that's key that you said that you hear from the adoptive parents or the birth parents, but you never really just talk to or hear from the adoptees and what they're thinking and how they're feeling. So then it makes them feel, I can see it making them feel that they don't count, they don't matter, what they're feeling is not important. And then all of these other behaviors start to manifest from that. And we need to find a way, and it's just so much bigger than what I'm thinking, but there should be a way to change that narrative. And I don't know if organizations or people are working hard enough to make that be something, or if they are and it's just too many. There's the volume of adoptive kids, and it's so great. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
um, well, speaking from when the time in which I was adopted, um, I had a closed adoption. And there were a lot of reasons why, children were put up for adoption. Yes, like you said, it might be drugs, it might be this, it might be that. There are some parents who are coerced or pushed into
Mm,
putting their kids up for adoption as well. You know,
wow.
you might be 15, 16 years old and your mom is kind of ticked off. And so she ships you off for you to have this baby. And then you come back afterwards. And, you know, in that process, her baby's been adopted somewhere else. So I think a lack of sexual education,
Hmm.
um, it's unfortunate, but there are more people who want infants and don't see children really as adoptable as babies. Um, and it's been said things like, well, you know, it's hard to have a, you know, a child that is already, you know, comes with issues. But I mean, if you are a parent, you know, when you birth that child, even within those first few hours, that child has a personality. That child is an actual person. So whether you get it as a infant or you get it as a 7-year old, you know, everyone comes here with their stuff.
Right.
And when you feel called to, you know, raise a child that is not biologically yours, you have to understand what that comes with.
Hmm.
And it's
Because
not yours to fix.
is that always, depending on the age of the child, is that always a constant thought when they are adopted that I'm not blood, like these are not my blood family members? And does that come up enough to where it affects them on a daily basis? Or could it?
I obviously can't speak for everyone. There are some people who never think about it. There are some
Mhm.
people who suppress it. You know, there are some people who, in let's say a transracial adoption type of situation, that's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
You know, you know that these are not necessarily your biological people. So
Mhm.
yes, it is something that, you know, is there no matter how much. I think even in a same race adoption, it
Mhm.
is something that, you know, comes up at some point in time. You know, you might be in the store and somebody goes, "Oh, you look just like your mother."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Reminder of the
Yeah,
fact. Yeah.
exactly. Trigger.
Yeah.
So, and you don't even, you know, kind of realize it. And that's if you're in the know. That's why I
Mhm.
like the podcast Black to the Beginning, because Black to the Beginning sheds light on a couple on, well, actually the two women who started it are they found out that they were adopted later in life. So now
Mhm.
that's a completely different, you know, situation than, you know, being adopted and knowing early childhood, and how do you process that growing up
Mhm.
versus being 28 years old or 32 years old and
Right.
finding that out, and what
Right.
exactly does that mean for
Right.
you. So, you know, a lot of identity searching, trying to figure out why, who, what, where, why, hoping
Mhm.
that, you know, especially the older you get, that people aren't passing, so then you don't get answers or you don't get to meet people.
Yeah.
That's something that's hard.
So
Um,
you were adopted at birth,
yes, 6 weeks.
and how old were you when you found out that you were?
Initially, my parents told me when I was 4.
Mm.
Um,
Do you
but
remember that?
vaguely,
Mhm.
I think they kind of reminded me enough of the story. But I think if I was aware, um, I was probably about 8.
And what was that like? When you
Um,
really could understand what they were saying and what that meant, because up until that point, you were theirs and that's all you knew.
no, I mean, when you tell a 4-year-old you're adopted and they kind of like explain it, like, okay. Um, I think it's like there are some times where you kind of you feel certain things. So it's like someone puts a face to a name, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what that was. All right, no big deal. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because as a child, you can see certain things, and you can,
mhm,
look at certain things. You can go to. I had been to enough family functions to start. You know what I mean? To faces to a name kind of thing.
mhm.
So but by 8, I guess it was more of like a self-awareness kind of thing. And um it was like I wonder what my birth mother looks like.
Mm. And
Uh,
had you been around her and
no,
didn't know who she was? So
no,
this was like total different locations, different places.
yeah, no. I've never been around her still to this day.
Mm,
Um, but have oddly enough been. We have a lot of crossed paths over the years where people know someone that knows someone.
right,
So,
right.
been
So,
kind of,
but have you had a conversation with her?
no,
So,
no,
so you know who she is, but
yeah,
you have not seen her face to face,
no,
nor had a conversation with her.
no.
Now, I ask a lot of probing questions, so you
Okay.
answer what you want to, but don't because I'm that person. Um, is that because she doesn't want to, or is it because and I'm sure you want to at least have a conversation with her? Is she refusing to do that?
Yes.
Hmm. Huh. And you have no reason why. Nothing has been said to you as to why she's refusing.
Um, it's not her. It was not the right time,
Hmm.
and I can't tell her story.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know her story, so I can only tell mine.
So now that you are an adult, married, family of your own, um, do you how does that make you feel yourself? Because it's different. I would assume it's different at different stages for people from, children, from toddlers to adolescents to teenagers to young adults. And then here you are, you married, got kids. And how does that make you feel? Like, look, I'm an adult. I don't want anything from you. I'm not looking for anything. I just want to know who you are. I want my children to see who their grandmother is, and you don't even want to meet with me. So how do you feel about that?
um, I've been in therapy for 2 years and change.
Mhm.
I finally found a great therapist, and this is something definitely to touch on. Um, my therapist actually has a background in adoption, which
Mm,
then allows him to get and give a perspective that's a little bit more understood from an adoptee standpoint than from somebody who doesn't understand and who is not adopted.
mhm,
Um, there's a I've never been upset about being adopted. I have just been unfortunately upset at the way that she's chosen to handle things as an
mm.
adult, like you
Yeah.
said. Because you're right, I don't want anything from you. I just
Mhm,
want a conversation. Um, and I get it, it takes time. Um, it took me time to
mhm,
get to that place. I've learned to live with I may not ever have a conversation, and I'm okay with that.
mhm,
Um, I don't need the answers to questions that I would have if I had a conversation anymore. I've kind of just made peace with it
mhm,
and
mhm,
learning that I can't. These are there's a lot of control and manipulation sometimes in
mhm,
adoption. And what I can't do, I can't control anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm also not, as an adoptee, trying to come into your world and blow it up at all. But at the same time, like, I've always been here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, as mothers, we know that there's a place in our heart for every single one of our children. So
Right.
regardless of how close or how far away they are, there's something that's inside you that reminds you on a regular basis of your child. This is not something that adoption takes anything away from. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we also talk about trauma, because there is trauma in ripping or taking a child away from their mother, whether it's because she can't handle it, whether it's because she's got drugs. Like, there needs to be some other options before we get to
Mm-hmm.
adoption, because I think it's done a little too quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, we have two more guests that are going to join us. Three more guests that are going to come on and join the conversation. So we want to bring them in. We want to, y'all. This is a little more serious of a story. So if I'm sitting here like fighting back tears, like I just can't even imagine. But I do want to hear the story. So what we're going to do is we want each of the ladies to introduce themselves and yeah, I guess I'm the question asker tonight because Morgan, you're in the group with the rest of them.
it's totally fine though. I was like, listen, well, no, I can still do my part, but from my end of things to, to kind of facilitate. These are my buddies too. This is an old friend and a new friend for me. So I'm
not that old, Morgan.
No, not old like that. We're seasoned. That's my sister there.
Yeah, you need to tell her. You need to specify what you mean by old. Like,
no, we go way back.
Let's clear that up. It doesn't matter who wants to go first, introduce yourselves.
I can jump in if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me join the panel. I'm really interested to hear the stories of the other adoptees in the panel. Morgan and I have talked quite a bit about our own adoption stories. We've known each other since high school, and I'm so grateful for my friendship with Morgan. So a little about me. My name's Amanda. I was adopted. That has been something I've said my whole life. I'm Amanda. I'm adopted. It's a part of me that I've always been part of my identity, just like my eyes are brown. My parents told me from before I can even remember. My parents adopted me when I was an infant. I was born in Louisiana to an unwed mother who already had a 3-year-old daughter. And she moved to Louisiana to give birth to me as part of not commune isn't the right word, but there was a lawyer guy who had basically rented this whole hotel. And I found this out later, but basically rented this whole hotel for pregnant mothers who needed to get away from their situations to have their babies. And so she moved from Texas to this place in Lafayette, Louisiana, and brought her daughter with her. And my parents had contracted with the lawyer when she was about 6 months pregnant. So my parents were supporting her through the end stages of her pregnancy and knew that they were going to be adopting me. And they flew down to Louisiana from New York, where they lived, and picked me up when I was 5 days old. And flew me back to New York, which is where I grew up, just outside of New York City. And so that's sort of the beginning of my story. And I was raised with so much love, all the love. I ended up having a sister who was biological to my parents. They didn't think they could have biological kids, which is why they adopted me. They had tried for years and had done treatments and things, but nothing stuck. So they adopted me. And then a couple of years later, they tried again and were able to biologically have a daughter. So I have a sister 2 years younger than me, but we're not biologically related. But we were raised together. And I knew that I was adopted, like I said, a social worker. When my parents adopted me at first, they went through a lot of social work counseling and things like that. And the social worker said, it's better for you to tell them, to have it be part of who they are, than to have them find out later. And that's what the social worker advised my parents, and they thought that made a lot of sense. So they just, we celebrated my adoption day every year, just like we celebrated my birthday. And so that it became just a part of me, that I was proud of. And I knew that, my birth mother had sort of made this, the way I identified with it was that she had made a sacrifice so that I could have a better life than what she could offer me. And I knew that she had written me a letter, but I wasn't allowed to see it until I was 18. And I knew that there was a photo of her. My parents had a photo of her, but I wasn't allowed to see that till I was older also. So I had these things to hold on to. And I knew that my mother also kept my adopted mother, who I just call mom. She kept a binder where she kept track of everything that related to the adoption, the phone calls that she had with the lawyer, the one phone call that she did have with my birth mother, and a card that she had gotten from my birth mother, kind of saying like, I'm giving over my child to you, and I just have a feeling you're going to take great care of her, which again I didn't read until I was like 18. So yeah, I mean, I think I have a best case scenario story. And then when I was 18, my parents gave me all this information, and I saw the picture and I read the letter that she wrote me, which was so beautiful for somebody who was 19, she just turned 20 right before I was born, and who already had a 3-year-old daughter, didn't have a high school education, wasn't in a serious relationship, didn't feel like she had a lot of employable skills. She wrote this really eloquent letter to me, and she had named me Erin. And my adoptive parents, when they adopted me, they named me Amanda. So I didn't know that she had named me Erin until later. But I thought that was really interesting. And then to quickly just sort of fast forward, I wanted to find her. I was really interested in finding her in my early 20s. I felt like there was sort of this missing puzzle piece of who I was that was missing. Not that I didn't feel whole. Like, my parents gave me everything that I could need, including tons of love. But I don't know, there is this piece of me, of who I am and what my ancestry is, and where I came from, that I just felt like was missing. So I started searching and had no luck, unfortunately. It was just sort of at the beginning of the internet becoming like a big thing, and so there wasn't a lot of ways to find people that way. I could have hired a private investigator, but I wasn't really willing to spend that money at the time to do that, which tells me that I wasn't quite ready for it. But then when I was working, one of my first career sort of jobs, we had a subscription for White Pages, the premium version, because some of what we do is research. So I asked my boss, is it okay if I use the premium subscription to see if I can find this woman who's my birth mother? I know her name, I knew her birth date, a little bit about her. And she said, yeah, go for it. We're a nonprofit and make a lot of money, so you got to get the perks where you can. So she gave me her blessing, and I went on that night and found a married name for the name of the person who I had, and found her on Facebook. Looked through the pictures, saw some pictures from the 80s that looked like the picture that I had of her when she gave birth to me, and kind of wrote a message, a Facebook Messenger message to her. And I didn't hear back for a couple of weeks. And then finally, as I was like crazy frantic, getting my baby daughter in the car, going to the airport to pick up my mom, who was helping us move, bing, this message pops up on my phone, and it was from her. And she was, basically like wow, I was totally not expecting this. But yes, I am that person that you're talking about. And I'm not ready to talk about it right now because this is a huge surprise. But yes, I do want to know you. And I do want to get to know you and have a relationship with you. So that was like, I immediately burst into tears. My husband's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, she wants to know me. It was, it was a big moment. It was a big moment.
Wow.
It was pretty gravitas moment. And so and so a couple of weeks later, she reached out to me via email. The subject of her email was excited to get to know you. And so we emailed back and forth a bunch of times and got to know each other and shared photos and stories just through email. And then when we kind of felt ready to have a phone call, we did. And I remember exactly where I was sitting. I remember the sound of her voice. Her accent was different than I could have imagined. And just, I don't know, just like my heart felt so full. And it was quite incredible. We got to meet each other. She came up for my birthday that year. And I just wanted to be close to her. I wanted to hold her hand. And she wanted to hold mine. Like these two strangers who, I haven't known each other for 32 years. Just felt like we wanted to be near each other. And so it was a really lovely visit. And then I got to go to visit her with my husband and baby daughter to meet the rest of the family. And sorry if I'm like rambling on. It's kind of a big story. I'll finish off with this, that I wasn't a secret to her family. That was a big concern of mine, was that she went away to Louisiana, gave birth to me. No one else knew. She just wanted to bury it in the past. I was worried that that it would come as a bad surprise to her family if she ever even wanted to tell them. So I was very happy to learn that I had always been part of their family. That picture of me and her, she had a version of it, and she had it in her family album. And so her kids always knew that they had a sibling who they thought was named Erin. So in their mind, I'm Erin. So I have 3 half sisters and a half brother, and they've all been incredibly welcoming. I've met them, most of them, not one of the half sisters, but and we have so much in common. We like the same music, and we look the same, and like all of these kind of amazing things. So with all of that said, and all of that happiness and all of that sort of best case scenario, I'm still broken. I still have things that I'm working on because of this identity that I have. I still seek validation all the time. I feel judged a lot. And, there's certain things that happen that I'm like, I wonder if that's because I have this background. I wonder, so anyway, sorry to take up so much airtime.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Well, I definitely have lots of questions for you because you've hit a few things, and I thank you for introducing. We're happy to have you on here. All right.
Crystal.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. A bit tired. I'm 5 hours ahead of you, so forgive
Yes.
me.
We have our first international guest here on the House of Peach.
Awesome.
Yes. So I was like, please introduce yourself and just share the awesomeness that I had the pleasure of just finding out.
Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Crystal. I am speaking from Portugal today, and I was adopted at the age of 10 from Madagascar to France. So I'm one of the transracial adopted that was adopted in the family. 2 of us were adopted in the same family. So yeah, for me it's slightly different because a lot of people are being adopted as an infant, and I was 10 years old, so I have a lot more memories. I lived with my birth mother for quite some time, but she was very poorly and passed away, unfortunately. So I then went into Catholic missionary for a while, and then into an orphanage, then for the adoption in France. So I think for me it was a big culture shock because you go from Africa to France. It's a very different culture altogether, and then you also end up being in a family with different culture, but also different skin tone. So you don't everybody knows around you that you've been adopted, that you're not part of that family. And also it was in a village in south of France, so you don't really see many people the same color as you. So you do stand out from wherever you go. So in that sense, the culture shock was quite intense. And part of that reason, later on in life, I ended up moving to the UK. So I spent actually most of my life in the UK now, which is interesting because I spent 10 years in Madagascar, then 8 years in France in my adoptive family. And then I went off to university and I spent most of my life in the UK. And I think moving to the UK is really where I start to explore who I was and in terms of my heritage, because the UK is a lot more. Well, I moved into a big city. I moved to London and then moved to Bristol. So the diversity is a lot better than in little village in south of France. So I had more opportunity to explore my heritage then and learn a little bit more about what I like, what I don't like, where do I belong, and all my African side of my heritage. So that's when I went back to Madagascar in 2010, met some of my siblings and family members. And that was also a big pivotal moment for my own identity, because I went back to something that I was familiar, that I was raised for 10 years. So it kind of ignited something in me to want to know more about my own heritage, really. And then I ended up doing a lot more work into African history and teaching children about African history. So that's in a way kind of helped me navigate my adoption in side, because identity has been a huge issue for me growing up. So yeah, that's me, I think. Yeah.
So you said you're in Portugal right now?
Yeah, so I moved to Portugal last year from the UK. I needed some sun. So,
Oh, wow. What time is it there?
well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness. Oh my.
So it's a late night party. I appreciate it.
Well, we are
I really
so appreciative of you staying up a little bit for us.
Well, I had an exhibition launch. I had someone who was launching the exhibition tonight, so I thought that's fine. I can come back a little later and then jump into the podcast.
Oh,
We
okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more guest, and Peach, she's the reason we're on here. So go ahead, Peach.
Hello, everyone. Y'all guys' adoption story sounds wonderful. Mine, not so much. I'm the product of two generations of adoption. So my mother was adopted, and then she turned around and left me with the people that adopted her. And I'm not really mad at her. I kind of understand because of her journey. And I'll start with her. My mother was actually in a legal adoption. She was left in the hospital. Her mother left her, and she made several phone calls. She called an adoption agency. She called around in the family and said, well, whoever wants her, come and get her. They're coming to get her in an hour. So my aunt and uncle got my mother. They raised her. they had to get illegal documents because her mother wouldn't sign birth certificate or nothing. She didn't have documents until she was like maybe one or two, and they had to have those forged. You
Mm,
know, as it sits, my mother doesn't even know exactly what year she's born.
mm,
So that's, either 58, 59. She's not even sure. But it was for me it wasn't as difficult, but for her, I kind of understand the disconnect. It was like Morgan said, little people, babies have their personalities and they remember the things that happened to them, or at least they remember that feeling. So I don't think my mother was able to really connect with me once I was born. So she left me with the people that raised her. And mind you, none of us knew that she was adopted. I'm the one that figured it out when I was 16 years old. So she spent her life, um, she always felt different. She never could connect with her mother. She's kind of connected with her father, but that's because he was her biological uncle.
mm,
His sister was her mother, and she never knew. The sister never came around her. The sister never came to the house. The sister really never tried to have a relationship with her. So I understand why she was the way she was. So when she had me, she left me with my uncle and aunt, and they raised me as their grandchild. I didn't know, but I always felt it was something different. Like I love them, but it's something off. It's like I see you, but you're different. You
mm.
don't understand me in some aspects. Um, so yeah, it was very difficult. And then when it finally came out, when I was 16, I figured it out. And I asked my biological grandmother, "Are you my mother's mother?" She said yes, which was strange because she never had anything to do with my mom. But once I was born, she tried to have a relationship with me. It was a little weird,
Mm,
very strange. And as everything came out in the wash, not only did we find out my mother had that experience with her, she did that with one other child. So when I asked that question, then everything fell out the closet.
mm,
One of my cousins, her other brother's daughter, at least we thought was her daughter. So it's very complex. The family dynamic is all over the place right now. You have brothers and sisters that thought they were cousins that's trying to mend and build relationships that their mom broke.
mm,
So it's very chaotic. And my mother, still as it sits, she she still is at a disconnect with everyone. She can't connect. She can't connect with her sisters and brothers. She tries to have a relationship with us, but with me and my brother, and she it's just it don't work. It's sort of like we tolerate. It's the holiday, let's tolerate.
mm.
Um, but it's weird because she has a connection with my children. So it's strange, but yeah, I'm the product of a illegal adoption. A little different than you guys' situation.
Wow. So we have really both ends. When I look at all three or four of your stories, it's to both two ends of the spectrum with that. You have Amanda who had a great adoption and great life and connected. And then you have Morgan whose mother does not want to have a relationship at all, despite you wanting to have something. And then you have Chris, is it Crystal? Krista?
Crystal,
Crystal?
yes. Yeah.
Crystal? Okay. Who has multiple, I mean, going from one country to the next to the next. Wow. Amanda, let me ask you. So you how do you feel about the name change? What reason did your adoptive parents know that your birth mother had named you Aaron? Did they know that at the time?
They did. Yeah, they did know that. And they had already, as part of their process of wanting to have a child and trying for years unsuccessfully, they had already identified Amanda as the name that they wanted to name their child. And so that was already set in their minds.
Mm.
And to them, it was a closed adoption. So at the time, they were, my understanding of what they were feeling was that I was their child 100%. Like they could, you know, bring me into their family, and whatever happened before that would be left in the past, kind of.
Mhm. Mhm.
So kind of starting fresh. This is our daughter. We're going to name her what we've chosen for her name to be. And how I feel about that, I don't, I actually haven't really thought about that much. The name Amanda means worthy of love. So I've
Mhm.
always felt connected with that meaning. Um, I find it interesting that I had slash have a second name, or I guess a first name.
Mhm.
It came before. Um, and it's kind of interesting because when I met my one of my half sisters, her name is Amanda.
Mm.
And so there were definitely some uh, confusing feelings that happened when we met. And, if our birth mother, she's both of our birth mothers. So she said, "Hey, Amanda," uh, I think it was confusing. So we kind
Mhm.
of went with, I'm Amanda M, and she's, our middle names, or, Amanda number one. She's Amanda number one because she came first. I'm Amanda number two. So it's just interesting. We played with the idea of just calling me Erin with them, but that's not my name anymore. It's not what I identify as. So yeah,
Right.
that's a really interesting question.
Yeah. I was just wondering because you do know what you were named, well, what your birth mother named you, and then your adoptive parents change that. And if that has, I wonder what it does if you think, well, why didn't you just leave my name the way it was? Or if you're just happy. And since you gave the meaning of the name, then it makes perfect sense. Like, I really understand it. Worthy of love. You're worthy of being loved despite what situation you were born into. So I think that is you amazing. You said two things that connected me to you. Like you said, moved from Texas and you were born in Louisiana. I'm like, well, I live in Texas now, and I was born in Louisiana. Like, where do we cross? I was like, oh my God. So yeah. Oh wow. I am glad that you had a good experience, the experience that you did with that, because your story is not everybody's story. And it doesn't always work out that way. So I'm glad that you were blessed to have the family that you did, who took you in and loved you and raised you, and you did connect with your birth mother. And I find it some people, I'm glad you took your time, because some people try to rush into things too quickly, and then they're not ready emotionally and mentally for that, and it ends up doing more damage. So the fact that you took baby steps and you did, let's email back and forth for a little bit, let's share things this way, and then okay, I'm comfortable enough, let's have a phone call and let's talk on the phone for a little bit, and then let's get together. So you both gradually prepared yourself for that. How did your adoptive parents feel about this whole communication and connection that you were making with your birth mom? What did they have to say about it?
That was hard. That was a really hard thing to navigate. I was constantly worried about my mom's feelings. I really didn't, she's done so much for me in my life, and I didn't want her to ever feel like I was not appreciating or not, or looking for something to replace her or anything like that. And I had I had a lot of feelings about that. And she had my adopted mother had a lot of feelings about it. And, there were so many different feelings happening all at the same time when this happened. And I think my adopted mother, she was worried that it wasn't going to go well. She was worried about me and my mental health. And, was this going to be a good thing for me? Was this going to go the way I hoped it was going to go? Would it take time away from her? Like now there's a third grandmother for her only grandchild. Is that gonna, and I don't think it was that maybe conscious of a thought, but I could imagine that thought going through her head. So I actually, speaking of therapy, that was a point in time where I was like, white flag, I don't know what to do here. I need some help and guidance. And they really did, the therapist really did help me. They said, put your thoughts down on paper, write a letter to your mom, expressing what you want to say. Because sometimes in conversations, it's hard to really get out your full feelings. So that was something that really, really helped me during that time. And, and I think my adoptive parents really had put that in the past. And appreciated what happened, that they were able to have me as a daughter, but kind of left it there. And then when I sort of dredged up the past, I think they were worried about what was going to happen. And then they ended up going to the state where she lives and meeting her. And that's when I think things turned around in my mom's mind. When she actually met my birth mother and was able to have like real heart-to-heart conversations in person. And so that was really special. And since then, there hasn't been any weirdness or awkwardness. It's been pretty open.
Good. That's good. So Crystal, you 10 years old, living with your mother, all of a sudden, all of that is gone. And you had siblings at the time? And being taken away from them and going somewhere different. What was going through your 10-year-old mind at the time? Like, I can imagine so many emotions. You have to deal with the loss of your mother. Now you have to deal with being separated from siblings and going to a place with people that you don't know, and to a new place you've never been and you don't know anything about, to live a new life. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that's I think it was a lot to process. I mean, between my mother passed away and I arrived in France, I think there's a couple of years going on between she left me with the Catholic missionary and by the time I got to France. So it's although it was a lot, but I think at the time I wasn't thinking too much about it. I think it was more like, okay, she left me, she's gone to hospital, she's gonna come back. And then you get told that she's not actually coming back because she died in hospital. But then I think my brain at that age was not comprehending everything. I didn't really question. I think the grief made me, I don't know, frozen in a way. So I don't think I was asking too much question about what is going to happen next. Well, my whole family was living in the village and further afield, but I didn't think that I was going to be taken away that far away. And to this day, I don't know who made the decision to make me adopted, because when I went back to Madagascar and met with my uncle didn't know I was adopted. They didn't know what happened to me. So to this day, I don't know. I found out a few months ago that my father signed the document for my adoption, but I didn't know my father. My mother never told me who my father was. So that is also very strange, because someone who was supposed to be my father signed the paperwork, someone that I don't know. So there's a lot of questions, but at the time I think I just wasn't really. I think I was just trying to figure out day after day what was happening. When I was at the Catholic missionary, I was in a girls' school where they were learning about sewing and knitting, and so I think that was kind of keeping my days. So I had some entertainment every day. So I was going along and learning about sewing and knitting myself with them. Um, but then suddenly I was taken away and took to the orphanage, and and then I had to learn French. So I was told then that I was gonna go to France. But in my brain, it didn't mean anything. I didn't understand what that means until you are taking into a plane into, and even in the plane, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how far this journey is gonna be. And then you arrive in France, and you've been taken by this family you don't know. So I don't really know when, at what age you really sink in. Maybe it's a year or so after arriving in France that actually I'm not going back to my family. This is the place I'm going to be. So yeah, I think it's because it's kind of a lot of trauma, I suppose. For me, it was I probably have suppressed a lot of the emotions around my mother death and the grief, and not seeing my family suddenly. And I also was asked to start learning French, and within 3 months of arriving in France, I couldn't speak my own language anymore. So there's a lot of loss. It was loss of my mother, loss of my family, loss of culture, loss of my language. So it was a lot of emotions to deal. And I think the only way I could do at the time is just suppress everything and just go on with it, get on with whatever. It was almost like the system. This is the system I need to follow. So just get on with the program in a way.
Right. Right. And you said that about having to learn French and just taking away your culture and everything. It's just one on top of the other. And you, as a young child who has no say so whatsoever, you just have to comply with what's going on. I just can't imagine having that kind of, I mean, we have stressful lives, but my goodness, to have everything that you've known, I haven't processed that my mother's gone, and then now I'm stripped away from my family, and my birth father has signed me off, and I don't even know who he is. Do you know, have you met him to this day? Do you know him, or you still don't?
Well, because my half sister wrote to me when I was about 15. And also, that was a very strange situation because my adoption is supposed to be a close adoption. So I don't know how she managed to, from Madagascar, finding my address in France to send me a letter. So all that is also a bit not very clear how she managed to have that. But my sister then, when I was 15, sent me this letter saying that she's my half sister, and I can't remember her either. And sending me pictures saying this is my father and we have the same father. But I don't remember who this man is. So all this picture doesn't look like someone that I remember.
Right.
So for me, and by the time I went back to Madagascar, he's already passed away. So I have not met him. I might have met him, but I don't remember who he is because I wasn't told he was my father.
Right.
I guess, yeah.
Right. How's yours is unique as well because your adoptive parents were different cultures. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it's that culture shock. I mean, everything is different. I from the food you eat to the language to the clothes you wear to, I mean, the landscape of the country. It's everything is so different. I mean, we're talking about even little things like, in Madagascar, girls never wear trousers. So me arriving in France, wearing a trousers for me was like, what's happening? This is weird. I'm not a boy. Why do you put the trousers on me? And yeah, it was difficult. I mean, even for the first year arriving in France, I was homeschooled, and because I was 10, I couldn't stay out of school too long either. But my French was still quite basic at the time as well. So my mother homeschooled me for a year. that also meant that by the time I went to school, I was a year behind. So I was the oldest in all my classes. Not only I was the only Black person, but also the oldest in the class. So that also kind of, you already stick out in whatever you do. You already stick out because in the village you're only Black person walking around. So yeah, everything is really different, and I think. But also, I think for me, the difficulty was around, I think my parents were not prepared in terms of that cultural side. They were not, the agency has not told them, you need to, like, I remember it took a while before my mother took me to an African hairdresser. So for a long time, I did all sorts of things with my hair. It's even, and again, I was adopted by a very Catholic family. I mean, Madagascar it became Catholic through the French colonizing the country, but the most of the country was then Catholic. So having to go into a Catholic family, that was also very hard for me, because it's a very different religion to what I've known. Yeah, and I think it's a cultural side that's been the hardest in a way, because I didn't understand their culture. My family didn't understand my culture, but in a way, it was me. It was on me to adapt, not my parents were not trying to adapt to where I come from. So I had to conform to everything, and I think for me, over the years, I just suppressed so much of my emotions and make myself very small, not to make anybody comfortable, that I felt like I was becoming invisible, because I have to just, like I say, follow the program. Don't make any noises. Don't take up too much space. Yeah, that was the difficult part. But saying that, I have a good enough relationship with my parents, to this day. So I'm still in contact with them, and I go back and forth, on holiday in France to visit them. But there has been difficulties in terms of, I think, also connection, because 10 years old, you've had a different life. So I'm telling you, this is now your mom and dad. It's, for me, it was really hard to be able to say mom or dad for a long time, because for me, it was very strange that suddenly some stranger had to call them my parents. So that was difficult in a sense. But I guess, yeah, after a while, you kind of conform to the old system.
Did you build a real bond with them, or was it more, okay, this is who you are and this is who I am, so we're just going to be cordial? Or was there, because I'm big on family and that connection. So I'm wondering if you were able, because you had so many things that happened, were you able to like build a really good connection with them, like loving connection, or was it just you're my adoptive parent, so that's that? Did you do that?
I think at the beginning, we probably have a lot of really loving relationship. I think my teenage year was harder, because I become my own person and trying to find my own way, and that's when a lot of questions starting to be. And I think that letter that I received from my half sister also triggered, like, oh, I've got a family out there who's trying to look for me. So I think from that point, because we didn't have, like, my parents were also, foster parents. So not only they had two biological children, two of us adopted, and there was about 4 or 5, 6 at the time kids in the house. So there was this lot of people, around the house. So in a way, my parents didn't have the space or the time to have those deep conversation, because they had to look after so many children. Yeah, so I think at the beginning, probably because the first year I was homeschool, so I kind of built a bond with my mother. She was teaching me. But I think as I get older, it was harder. I felt disconnected. I felt I didn't belong. I felt out of space, and I my self esteem was really bad. So and yeah, and I didn't really. I needed that connection with my own culture. I think so. At that point, I think there's more of a disconnection with my family. And I had my daughter when I was 20. I think we kind of reconnected because they really, supported me through that period of having my child. But again, when I become, I don't know, in my 30s, I become distant again because, that's when I was trying to get out of the fog, as we say. It's trying to find who I was and my identity. So that was because there's a lot of emotion going with that. So there's that anger of why did you not do more for, to teach me about my culture? Why did you take me away? Some of this question might not so closely because of their own fault, but I felt some ways that, they could have done more. But I know now they've done their best, even if it wasn't perfect. But I needed it, and I think I needed the emotional support, and I think so. Like I say, there's so many of us in the house. It wasn't the same as if they had one or two children in the house, and they could fully put all their emotions and their attention to those two children. We had, yeah, so many of us, so they couldn't put, I think, that emotions that I wanted at the time. So I think I felt angry to some part of those years, but forgiveness. I had to work on forgiveness, forgiving myself for being angry with them, forgiving them for not being there when I wanted them to be there for me, and doing a lot of self compassion on myself.
Yeah. So this question is for everybody. So anybody or everybody can answer. Um, with what you've been through, I know it weighs heavily at times on your mental state. And I know Morgan is seeing going to therapy and been doing so for a while. How do you handle that when you have these thoughts of your upbringing or your past? Or for me, it would have been the rejection, feeling like I was rejected, regardless to the situation. If your birth mother was trying to give you a better better life or whatever, I still would have felt like, well, why didn't you try with me? So how do you navigate that? What all do you do individually to help yourself to get through it? Because I don't think you would ever overcome it. It's something that you just deal with daily. Am I correct in that? Or is it something that you eventually do overcome?
I think, like anything, it's a part of who you are, but it's a daily thing. Some days you have good days, other days, not so good days. You know what I mean? Just the same as, any of us who, deal with self-esteem issues. You don't have to be adopted to have self-esteem issues. You know what I mean? So, but it's I've been really working on setting boundaries and understanding what a healthy boundary is for myself. Because, people pleasing comes into play. Like Amanda was saying, always in need for validation. Or it comes in the sense of just always making yourself available and giving more than you would normally give for fear of either not being accepted or someone, leaving. And so, really being able to assess those situations, figure out why, you're doing certain things. So it's all really about self-awareness. And, as Christelle was saying, like once you start coming out of that fog and it's like, okay, well, what exactly does it mean to be, to be me? What exactly is that? Because it's not who my adopted parents were, either teaching me to be, or, as Christelle, she had to adapt a whole new culture, language, and everything. Like, that's not who she, but who is she outside of that? That's something that happened, but who is she, is she really? And who does she want to portray? What is the purpose that she, you know, was born to have outside of this situation? Those are the kind of things that, it's a daily struggle. And as you continue to see, parts of yourself, and like, the layers start to unpeel, I feel like, you appreciate yourself more. And as Christelle was saying, self-compassion, you have to show yourself that every day. And it's the little things, pat yourself on the back when you see that you have figured it out a little bit more today than you did yesterday, and you're not beating yourself up as much today as you did the day before, you know. Um,
Right.
so I was like, that's kind of, how it is. And, you know, being open to finding a different way, because, you can go down a rabbit hole real quick,
Mm.
and it can get dark, it can get depressing, and you can get to a place where you you feel like you literally don't matter.
Mm.
And like Amanda, I know that feeling of, I wonder if I was a secret. That was my biggest scare. Like, just no one knew that I existed. And to live in a world where no one would even look for you if you disappeared. And that's not to say that, the parents that raised me wouldn't have, but let's just say something were to happen to them. It's just, where is there any other kind of, is there any other kind of legacy? Is there someone out there that is looking for me, or that wants me? And it's a hard place, whether you're a child or an adult, trying to figure it out. I know I started searching because my son he looked at me one day and he said, "I know I look like you, but who do you look like?"
Mm.
And so now when he starts asking me the same questions that my 8-year-old self was asking, I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to do more. And I appreciate having a community, um, like being able to have a friend like Amanda to talk to this about, because not every adoptee wants to talk about adoption. Not every adoptee goes and searches. Not every adoptee wonders about their biological, family. Like, every single person is different, and how they handle things is different. We do have a lot of things in common. None of us knew we were gonna really have to be private investigators ourselves in this, because there's always twists and turns and lies and false papers, and things that are funky in it, that kind of throw you off a trail. But yeah, it's a daily thing, and you learn to see it as a beautiful struggle, just like anything else.
Yeah.
I like to jump in. I appreciate what you said, April, about you feeling, the way that you felt. But for me, I feel blessed.
Mm.
I feel blessed. I actually thank the creator God that what happened, because I feel like I'm the one that broke the cycle. So
Mm.
I needed my adopted mother to help me become something different. I needed that traditional, well, she was a traditional woman, um, moral based, church, all of that. I needed that. My biological grandmother, complete opposite. She was more modern. She wanted to own things. She wanted to trailblaze. She wanted to be a part of different things. She wanted to do so entrepreneurship. She wanted to do all of those, but she didn't have the space to be a mother. So I
Mm.
feel like if she would have raised my mother, I don't think we would have been the people we are now. I wouldn't be who I am. I don't even know where I would be because the children that she did have and raise, most of them are on drugs
Mm.
or recovering. She did manage to have two children that were successful, but it was because of the influence of the people that raised me. So
Mm.
I feel blessed. I thank God every day. I'm like, woo, I dodged the bullet.
Mhm.
But my mother, on the other hand, she has a lot of resentment. And, that's another disconnect for us because I don't understand it. How do you resent someone who did something that you did to your own children? I don't
Mm.
get it. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
mean, I would definitely add. I would ask her because actually, it's so funny that you say that. Um, on my way out of the hospital today, I ran into a doula sister, and she had posed this in a question, or we were talking about motherhood, but she said there are a lot of mothers that, for fear of messing up their child, would rather abandon their child because they feel like their child would be better off without them, or that would be someone else's responsibility rather than to take it on themselves. Um, and fear of motherhood, like, is sometimes even greater than actually birthing a child. And
Mm.
so, I'm not necessarily sure if that's something, but, knowing that your mother was given up for adoption and then for her to turn around and do that the same. I mean, I know, my mother had told me, especially when I got pregnant with my oldest son, she was like, I didn't even think that you wanted kids because you never even played like someone who wanted children.
Mm.
And so, and it was funny, like when I got pregnant with him, I really had to make a decision, like, is this what I really want to do? Because I had never considered having children of my own. And then after having my second, it got even deeper because now, knowing in my search that I am the second child, am I mother enough to be able to love my child and not, what's the word? Not grieve the loss of possible business or what I'm building in myself at this time because now I'm having another child,
Mm.
or loss of self. Can I love two children? I mean, I was the second. I At the time, I don't know what the situation is. You know what I mean? So I just know I was the second child and she kept the first.
Mm.
mm,
Wow.
So that turmoil that's in there, you know what I mean? There's a lot. And when I was pregnant with my first, and he was around the age that my brother would have been when she was pregnant with me, I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I can't even be mad because whatever the situation is, like, I probably would have done the same thing. I probably would have done the same thing. And so then compassion comes in there, and that's why I was like, I've never been mad that I was adopted. I think that God happened to be quite funny and he kind of gave me the same parents in different form. So, it took me to start the search on the other end to see, the things that I'm supposed to be cursing. I already got a front row seat to what that looks like, so at least, I can be on it, in my own healing journey. So I think there's a lot of good things, and God's hand is in it. Um,
yeah.
There's
but
I
just,
um
you know.
I wanted to answer you, Morgan. Me and my mom have had that conversation.
Mhm.
It's the same reasoning why her mom left her. She
Mhm.
wanted to go, she wanted to build a life. I wanted to go to the army. I wanted to build a life. I wanted to do all of these things. And so I'm like, okay, it just brings me back to How dare you feel a way about her? And you did the same thing. And she said, but I didn't leave you in the hospital. No, you left me in the house with the people that raised you. What's the difference? A bed in the house and a bed in the hospital is nothing different. But again, like I said, I'm blessed. I don't feel a way about my mom. I think she
There you
just
go.
needs to do some thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, everybody's got their healing journey, and it takes some time, because she's dealing with her own pull, but then you don't think she's also dealing with the grief of how that has also affected you. You know what I mean? So she's kind of got it twofold. So I listen, as my great friend Amanda right here has taught me, empathy is huge in this game. I think for both yourself and for the other party. And I think the more that you show that in there, not that you're not an empath, because I know that you are, but the more that we show that, it makes it a whole lot easier, especially in the hard spaces that hit home for us when it comes to just our own personal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something,
Amanda.
yeah, thank you. A couple of things that were said resonated with me. Morgan, something you said about onion, the layers made me think of, that onion metaphor. And I feel like there's, on a daily basis, more layers or less layers to go through, and sort of like my outermost layer is just gratitude, like so much gratitude for how I came to be here and what I have been given, and the um, having the parents that I had, and being able to know my birth mother and know who she is and what she's overcome, and the real resilience that she has um, in her life, and all of that. But then there's other layers. There's insecure layers. There's um, sort of that, like you said, Morgan, like always seeking validation. Um, and then something that Peach said resonated with me too, which was about breaking the cycle. Um, and knowing what I know now about my biological mother, and I don't want to speak. It's her story, so I can't tell her story, but she went through a really, really hard time after I was born. And what would that have happened if she had kept me? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Um, but I know that she had a daughter when she was 16. Um, and I think that I, knowing myself, and this is sort of a probably an overshare, I think I could have gone down that path as a teenager. I got my first tattoo when I was 14, to my parents' utter dismay, because they were, church-going Christians and brought us to Sunday school every Sunday, and were completely mortified when I admitted that I had done that. And so I feel like there's this really, I don't know, when I know what I know about my birth mother's history, I feel like I very much could have gone down a difficult, very difficult road if I hadn't had the parents that I had guiding me, and giving me a very consistent, supportive life. Not that having a kid young is the end of the world. Obviously, many people do that and survive, and the kids turn out great, and all that. But it's a hard life. Um, and so my overwhelming feeling is gratitude, but obviously there's lots of layers of other stuff, and relationships, and fears, and all of that. And I think a lot of the relationships that I had, boyfriends and even friends, if things started to look like they were going south, I was the lever of those relationships. Um, and that's like probably something I should explore with my therapist. But I think the fear of rejection or whatever was too great, and I couldn't be on. It was very difficult to be on the receiving end of that.
Wow. Well, anybody have any closing remarks. Like we are, I can't, the time always goes by just too fast for me. I want to really get more into this, but anybody else have
We
anything
actually
that
have
they
one closing out, but yeah.
say that again?
I said we have one other thing closing out. I know we're like,
Oh yeah,
we're
yes we do.
like
Yeah, we have one.
fit in there.
Were we ready?
You said, yeah.
Are we ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter, you ready? I was like, yeah, we yes, we'll pull in one last one.
Go ahead, Morgan. You take this. You take this.
Yes. So I was like, this is my birth father. And so I wanted to bring on the panel from a birth parent's perspective, just a little touch on how, adoption affects from a birth parent standpoint, and even more differently, a father.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff. I am proud to be Morgan's father. I knew that Morgan existed months before her mother admitted to me that she was even pregnant. That's how strong the bond is between she and I. 312 miles away from me, I knew that she existed. And the lengths that I was called by her grandmother at 5:30 in the morning, her mother's mother, 5:30 in the morning, saying, that she was pregnant and what are you going to do about it? And I was in New York the next day. I was living in DC. And me and her grandmother and her grandmother's mate talked for an hour before I even saw her mother, before her mother even came downstairs. And they said it was best that the baby was adopted. Morgan was adopted. Her mother had another child that was a son that was about one and a half, and she had a situation where she was working, and then she didn't have a contract, so she was laid off. So she was living with her mother and the baby, and her mother says, "Listen, we can't take care of two children." So I said, "Well, she's mine. Let me have her." And they decided against it. And I am grateful to God and to my mother and to my grandparents, to my grandmothers, who showed me what to do when you have no control over a situation. Because if I had, I've never done anything to anybody that would make them want to do something to me, but the lengths that were gone through to hide the fact that that Morgan existed, I wouldn't find out until Morgan found me. And which was again I only ask God for one thing, that I live long enough to meet my child. God never said no. He said, wait. But he never said no. And it was the happiest day of my life. I had no idea that I had planned on being a father. I had told, when I found out that her mother was pregnant, I told the people that were most important in my life. That was my mother, my father, and my grandmothers. And they would always ask. They always asked about it. Jeff, what about that baby? What about that baby? I said, Grandma, I'm working on it. Me and the Lord, we're working on it. Okay. And I had to wait 38 years. It's the longest. I think I have the history, the longest history, waiting outside the delivery room for a birth. But I'm grateful to her adoptive parents for the wonderful job that they did in raising her. When I left the last time that I saw her mother, I put my hand on her stomach. I put my hand on Morgan, and I said, "Listen, I don't know how this is going to work out." She said, "But when she's old enough that she's supposed to write a letter to her mother, and you're supposed to write a letter, and then they would okay it, and then at that point they can share what information that they had." I had absolutely no idea, but I had a friend of mine that would. She said, "Jeff, if I had the information, I know I can find her." The information that I didn't have, it really wouldn't have mattered anyway, because the birth records were incorrect and someone else's name was on birth certificate. So this whole thing was orchestrated so that we would never find each other. Nobody would ever know the fact that their mother was pregnant. Nobody would ever know that she existed, and I would never be able to find her.
Wow.
2 words, but God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in his infinite wisdom, that, I did something right. I mean, I've raised a bunch of kids. I'm the oldest of 4. My mother is the oldest girl of 8, of 4 boys and 4 girls. My father is the oldest of 5. My grandfather is the oldest of 12. And I don't know anything else but taking care of everybody, taking care of each other. I'm from a small town in Virginia, and that's just what we do. And I am so grateful that things have that we found each other. But I had no idea the effect that this would have on me, to be denied your child, denied your choice and your chances of becoming a father. I think I would have become, when you find out that your baby's coming, you get ready. And, and I was getting ready. I had everybody around me, and it was just like, Jeff, well, listen, you're not the first, father to raise a child, and, and if you need some help, but however, I'm not the one carrying the kid. I live in DC. She lives in New York. A woman's right, to choose. Nobody ever asked the father how he feels about this. I think at the end, my buddy Peters used to say, he says, Jeff, he says, God's going to ask you, what did you do with the ones that I sent you? And I'm here with one of them right now, Catherine, who is also substituting as my tech. Come here and say hi, Catherine. And the relationship that Morgan has with us all is just she doesn't have to worry about whether whether her mother complies or not. We got enough love to cover this. And Morgan, even though I can just, I'm looking at you right now. I cannot wait to hold you. I mean, it's just like I am so proud of you, and I am so blessed to be your dad, and she's giving me the gift of my grandsons. You know, she told me something that was just, I would never forget. She says, "My children are my only living relatives." And I think the same thing. She is the, sorry, she is the only proof that I exist,
Wow.
that I ever existed. And I looked for her face in every little girl I saw for 38 years, wondering what she looks like, what her Christmases are like, where's her first day of school. I can say this because Catherine, I was there when, when she was born. I was there when her mother was born. I was there when all of my kids, when they were all born. I can't imagine not being there. And I was looking so forward to her being there, and I did not know I am going on in February, if God lets me live, I'll be sober for 33 years.
Wow.
But when I was active, a lot of my addiction was behind the guilt of having a child in the world and not being able to find her. And that masked itself as depression, and I didn't know it. So, I knew when I was 18, my father was like, I said, man, I think I need to go see a therapist. And he was just like, he said, is there something wrong? And, or you need some answers. I says, no, the question keeps changing, and it has everything to do with what you believe. And she is proof that how good God is to me. And it took a long time for us to be able to find each other, but I feel like I'm completed. It's to have someone that close to you and you don't know where they are. It's brutal. It's brutal. And it's like half of my heart is just hanging out there someplace else, and I don't even know where it is. And the only thing I can do is just cry and pray and pray and cry and cry and pray and pray and cry and hope. And so I apologize. This is the pain of the separation, and everything that led up until this point is only surpassed again, like Amanda says, by the gratitude of how God just is just such a wonderful planner and has the a very morbid sense of humor sometimes. And but how the plan comes together and how so perfect it is. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But really, agencies, people need to really think twice about, it takes two people to make a child, and both sides, that equals the balance, in a child's life. Not to have that. I can say that I have 5 parents. My mother was married to my father. She got married again. My father had 3 wives. So, I've got a lot of family around, but regardless of whatever the situation was, we all stayed and we all supported each other. and that's what's important. So I subscribe to your channel,
Thank you.
and
I love you
you
too.
know. And you guys are doing great, and God bless each and every one of you. And these talks are important, and thanks for letting me share. I love you, Morgan.
I
Wow.
love you too.
Oh, it was so wonderful having you on. Oh my goodness. I am just full speechless. Like, oh my goodness. Morgan, you look just like your dad. And
I
listen,
do.
I would have been like, I'm going to my
I
dad.
lose 30 pounds. I lose about 30 pounds. He's gonna look more like me.
Oh my goodness. So thank you so much, because we never hear from the birth parent side for those that did not want this to take place and
No.
tried to do something and it did not work. So I'm glad you were able to come on and share with us your side of it, because you wanted to be in her life. You wanted her to raise for yourself, but people do things, they just do things themselves and not take into
Yes, but
consideration
also
the
I want to
child.
say thank God to her. Also, she has an aunt. Her mother has an older sister. And, thank God for her, because she was the one. She's older, and when Morgan's grandmother died, she told her the truth, and part of that truth was that that to let her know that she was not a secret, okay, that she was loved, and that her father was adamant about wanting her, and is still adamant about wanting her.
Oh,
You know,
I love
you
it.
know, I may not be around for the rest of her life, but but I'm gonna love her for the rest of mine. So
I love it.
it's
I
just,
love it. Thank
she's just too good. She's just too wonderful.
you. Wow. Well, y'all, we have like let's see. Do you want me to share this, Amanda? Or is this just for us?
And shout out to Lulu, who adopted your babies this year in June. Thank you.
Yes, I'm
Thank
so
you
sorry.
for being able to do that and love
Yeah,
on those babies. And if at any
yes.
point in time you feel like you need to, reach out and ask, a community like this is always open to be able to help you as far as the parenting journey, be able to best be, the parent for your children.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything else they want to share before we sign off for tonight? I do not want to stop anyone from sharing what they want to. This has been great. And I know Christelle wants to, like, I just want to go to sleep.
No, no.
Oh my goodness, over in Portugal. I guess the next
I can't
day.
go sleep anymore, because after hearing Morgan's dad, I'm just like, whoa. How can it get any better than that? The story, it's just amazing. No, I'm wide awake now.
Yes, yes. Well, look, wide awake. Look, while I've got you and you're in Portugal, and this is also what we happen to do here on House of Peach, I do want to highlight just a little bit, Christelle, let everyone know exactly what you do on the other side of things and your hand specifically in adoptee advocacy.
All right, so I'm a coach, so I do a lot of work with adoptees. So I do a lot of work helping them to navigate their stories. So it's kind of my way of giving back. What my journey has been. So I wish I had someone earlier in my journey who could help me navigate my journey. So I'm doing that with other adoptees now. But I also got a podcast for Black adoptees that I interview. So I'm hoping Morgan will be coming on very soon on my podcast and come and share our journey. And you can bring your father along
Sure,
if you wish
absolutely.
to. So yeah, I've got a podcast. So Yeah, do tune in. Listen to it's called Black Adoptees Identities.
Awesome. Look at that. Okay, Morgan, all
Well,
international
listen,
now.
listen. I just want to say this. None of this, none of this could happen. None of this would happen. And I have to also mention my life's partner, Gloria. We've been together for 33 years, and on what I thought was one of the darkest days, I had absolutely no idea. If you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans.
Mm-hmm.
The day that we moved into our house was Morgan's birthday, and she came with her husband and my grandsons to spend it with us in our house for the first time. It was the first time that I met her.
Wow.
But the first time I talked to her, I said, listen, I said, I get called my cousin. My cousin called me up. She says, Jeff, I think we found your daughter. I'm just like, yeah. I'm just like, okay, well, listen. She says, yep. She says she wants to talk to you. She says she doesn't want anything. I says, well, listen, Rodney, you got to give me at least an hour. I got to power up my phone. I've got to drive to a remote location so I can, if I need to scream, if I need to holler, if I need to set something on fire, then I can do that. So it was, but Gloria. This is also Morgan's bonus mom.
I love you.
She is the love of my life, and for a minute, just for a hot second, she wasn't sure how this was going to work out, but she worked it out in such a way that I am so grateful. I'm saying, Gloria, listen, as many kids as we have raised together, I says, listen, I told you about her when we first met. Okay. I know I have a daughter. I don't know where she is, but if she pops up, don't say I didn't tell you.
See, I warned you.
How many moves do you get in life?
That's what I'm saying. She showed up with a big ta-da. And and Gloria has just been exactly the kind of helpmate that God sends for a man to have. And I am so grateful to her for my life. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's wonderful to see. I'm really quite speechless, Jeff. I've heard about you. I've heard about, Morgan shared with me that you two have come together, and I'm over the moon. Morgan is amazing. She has been one of my closest friends for a very long time, and I'm so thrilled, and it's really quite amazing to hear your side of the story and meet you sort of in this way. Someday I'm sure we'll have another conversation, but
Yes.
I'm honored to meet Morgan's biological father, and wow. I wanted to also share that in this discussion about biological fathers, it's an interesting part of it, because the biological mother knows that they're having a child. The biological father doesn't always know about their biological children, and in my case, my biological mother isn't 100% sure who my biological father is. She, was a teenager. She was kind of wild, and was dating, a couple of guys at the same time. And there was one particular guy who she thinks that it probably was, but he was in it. He was in another relationship, and she was, from what she said, kind of. She didn't want to ruin his life, not knowing for sure that it was his child. So, I have a biological father. I don't think he knows that I exist. And so I've never really wanted to, even before I knew my biological mother, I never really was very curious about him, and I don't know why. It just always was like too mysterious, I think, to comprehend, and it still is, quite frankly. I can't picture him, sometimes I try to think like, okay, I have a picture of my birth mother now, and I can see like what traits I've inherited from her, but I wonder what, you know, physical traits or other traits I've inherited from him, and I do wonder about that. But yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting concept. But I'm so glad that you two connected, and that you are who you are, and Morgan is who she is, and I'm just so happy for you guys.
Find this dude. Find this dude on Facebook. Your mom knows your mom knows what his name is. Okay, he knows what his name is. I don't care if it was 6 or 7 dudes. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, look them all up, because I know if they're single, they're still dating. Okay, even if they aren't, they're probably on LinkedIn somewhere. You know, but you know, and listen, sometimes you can just, if it's anything like me and Morgan says me stuff like, you know, your firstborn is the one that looks just like it. And so if that's the case, you'll be able to pick him out of a lineup. You know, because I have one sister, you know, and growing up, you know, when my parents were divorced, me and my dad lived together, but my sister would come to visit. When she came to visit, I left for the entire weekend. They needed their time together, you know. So, you know, a woman's got to have it. So, you know, so so I'm saying, you know, mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So,
I feel you.
So, you know, we got to keep them happy. And you guys are doing a great job with this channel.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of all of you.
I got the best hostess. The best host.
Yes, I love you.
I agree.
April. I appreciate you guys. I'm super excited. I'm glad that this went very well. As far as sharing from, you know, different perspectives, that was really what I wanted to do, and to really highlight adoptee voices. But then again, too, I, you know, personally thank you, Jeff, for being able to share your side of things. Especially because, like I said, one, we don't get to hear from fathers that much, but then also from a birth parent's perspective, and the other side of things. So I really do appreciate you, and especially last minute, forgive me.
Anytime.
It's
my job that I happily accept. Okay, I got you. I got you. Don't worry about it.
I appreciate it. What I said, that's why I said you guys are
okay. Okay, if I'm living, if I'm living, I'm in.
No, all right.
I love you.
We hear that.
You know, I love you as always, and I appreciate you. Like I said, it's important in I think in any community, and just as people in general, to be able to find your people, and to be able to find people that can be able to hold space for you, who you can be honest and vulnerable with, and can, you know, grow through life in different stages with. You know, like Amanda said, we've known each other since high school. She was at my first baby shower, and I was at her last christening. So, you know, we have kind of, you know, fused and bonded, and, you know, finally, even just, you know, recently got to be able to get all of our kids together with spouses and things, to be able to, you know, just have some fun. So when you are not an island by yourself, and especially when it comes to already feeling like you're isolated, alone, and or abandoned. And so continue to find and seek out like-minded people, and in the space that you want to go. Like I said, there are times that things can get very dark, but find people who can be able to show you the light in situations, and to give you a brighter perspective on things. But at the same time, at no point in time are invalidating the way that you feel. You know, be able to speak up. And that's what I really want more adoptees to be able to do, whatever their experiences are. The more that we share and have forums like this, the more we can be able to change certain laws that can, you know, like I said, provide either more resources so that more women and or men can be able to, raise their children or feel like they're capable of being able to do that, because that's what we see now more than anything. And to educate more people as far as being able to take children that are not necessarily just infants. Right now, I believe there's, if it's not 113, it's 130,000 children that are in foster care right now in the US at this moment. And they all deserve to be adopted just the same as any infant that was born 72 hours ago. Every child deserves to be loved and feel like they belong somewhere, regardless of whether or not they were biologically birthed or not. So, I urge you, if it really is in your heart, to definitely start there. There are definitely great foster care programs. And like I said, reach out to other adoptees, reach out to, birth parents, so that you can be able to have a whole full picture before you step into or, want to be able to either adopt or foster a child. This way you can be able to be the best parent, just the same as if you were to have birthed your own.
Morgan, you just sparked an idea for me, Crystal. It's I love hearing about your program that you're working on, and getting adoptees together who have a similar, maybe similarities or similar experiences. I think foster care and going through that process as an older child is something that I can't relate to. I can't understand, because I was a baby when it happened. There are certain things that you maybe certain things that you have experienced, and it seems like you want to you're creating this community, which is amazing. Is there any way to provide guidance to foster parents on what they could do to help build that person's identity and bring their culture from where they originated from, or sort of, I don't know, take it one step further, so you have sense of community and identity with each other, but then also adding in sort of a guiding element for foster families who are adopting older children, so that they don't make the same mistakes or missteps that happened in your life that maybe didn't feel quite right. I hope I'm saying that okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think it's a process really, and I think it should be part of the, adoption agencies should provide the service to families first of all before they even adopt. They should go for a program. So if you know you're gonna adopt a child from, let's say, Africa, have the education, learn about the country, where this child is coming from, learn how to look after a child's hair, learn about, what kind of food this child is used to. Because, in my case, by the time I get to France, it's a very different, nutrition. So it's those little things that before you even adopt the child, I think you need to do your own research and education. And then when the child arrives, it's a continuing education. It doesn't stop there. It should continue. And I would also say surround yourself with people that can support the child, because, we say in Africa, it take a village. Get people, if it's a child of different culture from you, surround yourself with people who have that culture, who can also support the child as they grow up. So there's a lot of things you can do. Have something that look like the child culture in your house. I can't remember having much in my parents' house that come from Madagascar in that sense. I would have liked to have seen that so I could connect to my own culture. Yeah, I think it's just a continuing education, and I think the fact. I mean, it's difficult because people adopt and they already have their own life. Like my parents were living in a small village. A lot of adopted parents say they're not gonna uproot themselves to go somewhere else to have this community. But my question I always say to parents is, you are uprooting a child for their own culture. Why can't you uproot yourself? Why is the child who has to always have to be uncomfortable, why can't you move into a community where this child will feel a little bit more comfortable, where there's people who look like them? So it's just question, adoptive parents should ask themselves, what are they prepared to do and what they're not prepared to do when they adopt a child. And there's a lot of layers, I suppose. And, the other thing I always say when I do talk to adoption agencies, I think adoptive parents need to do the work as well, because parents adopt for all different reasons. And like adoptive children get triggered by things, adoptive parents get triggered as well by other things. So, for example, if a woman adopts because she can't have children, when that child decides, oh, I'm going to reconnect to my family, that's also a trigger I'm going to lose my child again. So if you have prepared yourself, done all the internal work before you adopt a child, I think it's really important. But again, adoption agencies should provide support to families from the start. It's not just down to families. I think it's a two-way process that should be. And some agencies are really good with it, but others no. It's not always consistent, and that is the issue.
I agree.
I think so.
Because we've had foster children, as well as we've had also family, and those agencies already have everything in place, if nothing else, but to be able to guide. There was one group that we were part of that were grandparents raising grandchildren, and so they put everybody together. So the central place was the agency, and they gave us a room to be able to do whatever we need to be able to do, network, whatever we needed to do in order to be able to get those type of like-minded people together, whether there are grandparents, whether they are service providers, or whether there are just people that just want to help, being able to get them together. But they have all of the paperwork. They know what the child is. They know how to be able to protect the child, so then therefore it's much easier for them to be able to facilitate that, even if they just got it together and says, listen, okay, you don't have to meet here. You can meet down at the fire hall, and they've already got a place for you, and this will be the place where you'll be, and then you can coordinate things, from there. But there's a whole lot of hands in adoptions, and everybody needs to be able to be responsible for their part of it. And some people don't want to be responsible for those things. However, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If something happens that you don't like, and especially if you got kids because I've had a couple of kids that I was working with, and they were 16, 17, and when you get a kid, once he gets like 13 years old, it can be a challenge, and especially if they are court involved. And there's so many kids out here, and not individual children, but I used to work for an agency that had there are multiple children, and they don't want to break them up. So you've got 2 or 3 siblings. They'll pay extra. They'll just whatever it is going to take in order for to be able to keep these kids together, in the same house. Then that's the family that we're going to look for in order to be able to do that. But I think that if I were to say anything, I would be able to say, deal with somebody who cares. You have to care. If you don't care, because if you're not doing your job, I don't care whether it's a butler or whether it's the guy that's waxing your car. If he stops caring about what they do, it just becomes a job. And people that are in child agencies, believe me, I've done the job. Okay, once you stop caring about people, then it's just a job. And where people are concerned, especially children, you don't have the luxury of doing that. So maybe you might want to find out, maybe you might want to get a detailing job, but this ain't it. Okay. Children's lives matter, and how we take care of each other does matter. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to to say that because I think on this panel today we all have good adoption, and there's times it's not always. There's so many cases where parents adopt and put it back into the system because it didn't
Right.
work out, and what does it do to the child? You've already got issues of rejection and abandonment, and then you get rejected the second time round, and that's a very, very difficult, and around that's one cause of the mental health with some of the adoptees,
right.
because they don't have a stable place, and there is a lot going on, and like Morgan mentioned about it's 4 times the rate of adoptees committing suicide or attempting suicide is 4 times than non-adoptees, and we don't talk enough, I think, in those space again about that, and how adoption can be a business in itself as well.
Yes.
There's a lot
Yes.
going on.
It's right. It's exactly right. It's exactly a very underhanded business. Okay.
Yeah.
And to where they're just and the also a lot of the state agencies also feel the same way. As long as as we are emptying a bed or filling a house or get a kid through the system, and then the kid ages out, and then now they're too old. Nobody wants them. They have no life skills. They have nowhere to go. And where did they go? And then you have to be really concerned about their mental and behavioral health.
Yeah.
Because those things are critical. And trust me, I don't care whether you're in the country or whether you're in New York City. That's what I'm saying. The first thing that when I first went to New York City for the first time in my life, I came in and I'm saying, this is where I would hate to be homeless. Would be here, while also in Chicago too. I've never been that cold in my life, but the having a child out on the street with no services and nowhere to go, it's bad for everybody.
Yeah, and I think I've interviewed many adoptees where actually, people are always ask me if I would adopt, and for me, my answer is always no, because I don't feel I could provide enough emotional support for that child, because there's so much layer in an adoptee. And I also see through the work I do and when I interview adoptees, how many are actually left in limbo. They don't have a birth parent, and they fell out with their adoptive family, so they're left just on their own. And I think that is quite heartbreaking, because the point of putting a child for adoption is for that child to find a loving family. But then when that breaks down, they're left by themselves. And what do we do then? I think that the question I always ask agency, what is there for when the adoption breaks down? And I don't think when the child is past 18 years old, there is not much support, because they're an adult and they're left to their own device. And I think that is one thing. I mean, we can talk a lot. There's a lot to talk about around it.
Oh yeah.
I have a question for everyone that's on here. Not to cut y'all off, just interesting. Would y'all have felt better if you were adopted into your own family and didn't know you were adopted, and then when you figured it out, it was your family anyway? Would that have been a better situation to have that parent give you to a family member and that family member never acknowledge you? Would that been a better experience?
Well, that's kind of my brother's situation. He's a kinship adoption. And his father showed up all the time to every family function. And my heart used to hurt for him, because there's nothing like walking past your father and him not acknowledging you. Or acting like you were his nephew and not his son. And that was me from the outside looking in, but also still having an adoptee lens. So, personally, I can say that that definitely hurts more. And that has a lot to do with the relationship that the two of them have. And so, I mean, it's never okay to lie. Because here's the thing, we know, like, we know before we even know. So to lie about it is only going to make more of a thicker line of distrust, and where we feel like we can be able to 100% be ourselves or be vulnerable, because obviously you don't have what's necessary to just give me the basics about myself. I don't think a lot of people also know that, like, the history of adoption, and especially here in the United States. And it honestly came from a lady who, for a lack of a better way of explaining it, was stealing children and selling them off to other families. And she made a crap ton of money off of it until they caught up with her. And
The
once they
Tennessee Children's Agency, right?
say it again, yes,
Was it the
exactly.
Tennessee Children's Agency? Yep.
Exactly. I was like, and then, by then the government's like, oh, okay, that's how you did it, and now implemented it as something that's legal. And that's what we've been doing. So, being born in the 80s, I think after around the time Amanda and I were born, they started to stop doing closed adoptions because they were realizing the effect that it was having on adoptees. For me, the only way I technically would have been able to unseal my records was to be so deathly ill that I needed a bone marrow transplant. I technically, my birth certificates are fake. So if I wanted to run for governor, y'all are going to have to do more digging than you had to do for Obama.
Yeah. At the same time, I've thought about this a lot, like the closed adoption versus open adoption stuff. I watched a boyfriend's sister go through an open adoption. She was a teenager in high school, had a baby, and I remember encouraging her to think about adoption. And I very openly shared my story and how I was adopted and I've had this great life and all of that. Um, and she did end up going through with the adoption. But it ended up being she wanted to do an open adoption so that she could still maintain a relationship with her son. But I watched, not the whole story, not the whole situation. That relationship ended up dissolving. We stayed friends for a while, but so I haven't seen the whole thing. I haven't seen them in a long time. But I remember in the very beginning, it was really, really hard for her to be around her biological son, and he was calling his parents mom and dad. And she's not an aunt. She's not a family friend. She's, this person came from her. And that was, I don't know from the son's perspective. He was too young when I knew them, but I know for her, it was heartbreak. Every single time they got together, her heart broke over and over again. And it was really hard for me to watch. And I don't know if that was better than a clean break, or not. But I've thought a lot about that over the years.
Well, we have just the three that we have now. We have Catherine, who's 14, Xavier, who you didn't see, who's 13, and then Avery, who you may have seen, who is 7. Okay, that's Catherine's younger brother. Okay, these are our great nieces and nephews, but for all intents and purposes, to anybody else, these are my grandchildren. I was there when they were born, and they know their parents, regardless of how active or not active they are in their life. But we give them the option. I mean, just like, listen, you do the things that you're supposed to do, you act the way that you're supposed to act, and and you can see your kids. We live so far, and we live 3 hours away from where we used to live now. So it's not like it's the 20 minutes that it would take in order for them to be able to see them when they came to their grandfather's house. So they don't get to see them anymore. So now it's on a Zoom or anything else like this. But it's really interesting. One is, but I still have to coach them all on, because they know I can look at them in a certain way and they know exactly, yeah, Papa Jeff, I know I love you too. Okay. To reinforce that, so that no matter what, okay, your parents brought you into this world, okay, but God gave you to us. Nobody took you from anybody. It was there are just so many dynamics within a child, and then their perspective of things is so different, and they're all different, but they all still want to know who their parents are, even though they may know and they may see them and they may talk to them, but still they don't have their relationship like we have. And the only thing that I can do is to be able to to model the love part. They have to, I guess, when they get older, then I guess they're gonna have to talk to Dr. Phil about that also. About how they feel about their parents, and and why they couldn't take care or not take care of them, and why they're in a situation that they're in right now. However, they know that they're safe and they know that they're loved, and then they know that they're protected. And I think that that's all children want to know, is the fact that they're safe, and that they're cared for, and that they're loved. And the rest, I think the rest of it, if we just take care of that part, I think the rest of it pretty much take care of itself. So hopefully they'll be able to come home, when you get old.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say we all agree that the system is definitely in need of some upgrades, some improvements, some things that benefit everyone that's involved and not a certain group and the others get left out. And that's very important. And this topic is so heavy enough that it requires a lot. Like, you just can't deal with it in one setting and boom, it's done. No, there's so, like you said, Amanda, there's an onion. There's so many layers to it. And Crystal, I am so grateful for what you're doing and beginning to do with your podcast and bringing that together, and what this is going to lead into, and how, and I pray that it sparks in multiple places, so some change, some very positive change can take place, because there's no reason why Jeff should not have been able to have Morgan or have access to Morgan when he actively wanted that. There should have been some kind, like you said, about your culture, and something, your birth parents, your adoptive parents do something to keep your culture so you don't lose that. So you had all of that stripped away, so thinking on those lines, okay, what can I do for this child to help them know who they are and never lose that, and let them develop their own identity. And I be here to support and show them love and affection and help nurture them into that way. And more, it's just not like that in most instances. And Amanda, I am grateful that you were blessed with the parents that you were blessed with, because you are not, I don't know. I don't know what the statistics are, and if they're skewed more one way than the other. But I'm appreciative for that. And Peach, even though you're the way things were with you, you're grateful, and that's key. You are grateful for how it took place, because if it had gone a different way, you said you don't know where you would have been. So they're all benefits and downsides to things. But the way that all of you have maneuvered through and become the incredible people that you are, I'm just happy to know y'all. I really am.
Same.
Oh, and we have like broke the time clock.
Absolutely.
Yeah, broke
Score,
the
ding,
time
ding,
clock.
ding.
But this was definitely necessary. And even though we did break the time clock, I would not have had it any other way. Jeff, you were an absolute great addition to this show. And I'm so happy. I was sitting here like fighting back tears, like, no, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. But I felt every word. I really
God bless
did.
you all. It's just been the most amazing thing in the history of my life. You know,
Wow.
I am I am happy, as I'm saying. You know, it's like Prince said, is, you know, love is too weak to define just what she means to me. She is. There are no words. There are no words.
Oh.
There are no words, and I'm speaking these words into the universe, that all parents will be able to find, and all children will be able to find their parents, regardless of whether they're here or not. We get, you know, to find out where they came from, to be able to belong. It matters. It matters. It matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It matters.
And that
Absolutely.
doesn't, it takes nothing away from what we were blessed with and given, to be able to go back and find out exactly where those roots are. It only makes us stronger people. You know, there's a nature and there's a nurture to every single side of things. And to be able to understand and appreciate both sides just makes everyone a more well-rounded individual. So
Yeah, I always say, Morgan, it's not nature versus nurture. It's nature plus
that's
nurture.
very
Right.
true.
It's
Very
the whole package.
It's the whole package. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, I would love to meet Morgan's adoptive parents. You know, just to hug and kiss them too. It's just, you know, they're just we're just all, listen. We don't own children. We are just stewards. Okay. You know how we you know, they're going, you know, just like Johnny Appleseed. Some seeds fall on cement, some fall on fertile ground. I'm not responsible for, for what tree grows where. But however, you know, if you figure you throw enough seeds, you know, something's going to happen. And you ladies are just amazing, and God bless you all.
Thank
Oh.
you. And G, kiss her for me, please. I love
Yes, done deal.
you.
Well, y'all, we have come to the end of our show. Thank you. Oh my goodness. You need to share this broadcast out with as many people as you can. They need to hear this, they need to see this, and we need it to get into our communities for change to take place from the voices of our great adoptees that came on. Thank you so much, all the way from Portugal. I feel so
Yes,
special that you're
good stuff.
on.
Thank
Oh
you.
my
Good
God.
stuff.
House of Peaches all over across the water.
I think I'm going straight to breakfast.
There you go.
You might as well. You might as well. No, you need to get some sleep. You
And
can't.
listen, I'm gonna plug it right now, seeing as though this is also going to be on my page. But listen, Christelle is hosting a retreat for adoptees. I am like super
In Portugal.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, can I
Destination
pretend?
retreat.
I
Can I
love
pretend that I was adopted and come along? I can act
you can
pretty
be my
well.
support person, okay? Because listen, I plan on going. I have options, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
Morocco.
I'm excited. Morocco or Portugal,
Listen,
2024.
I got a passport, and it
As
has
you
spaces
are,
for both
let's go,
stamps.
let's go, let's go. No, Peach, come on, let's go.
Oh
She
my
said, "Is this
goodness,
for
that would be
agency only?"
amazing.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out and plug just in case
Thank you.
you guys want
Yes.
to be able to get some more information. Black adoptee identities on IG, okay? And then you can
Yeah.
follow the link there in the bio.
Well, I'm just going to get the information from my own. Don't be surprised if I show up and you're like, what are you doing here? Adoptee today.
For research. It's for research.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's it, for research. All right, y'all. We have to close out for this evening, but join us again on next Tuesday at the same time on all of our channels. You just never know who and what we're going to talk about on our shows, but just know this, that it is going to be impactful. It is going to be heartfelt. And it's going to be inspiring, and we are here to change lives and to help you be better than you were yesterday. There's so many things that we can do in this world, in our communities, and we just like to think here at House of Peach that we have our own little piece of it in helping and doing the things to make change. So until next week at the same time, y'all tune in, share this out. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one. Thanks again, you guys. I love you.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, I'm so extra. Express myself, I'm next up. Yeah, what more do you say? Coming up.